Hello, Savat the Mighty here, and I'm back with another Eve Echoes video. Today's video, we're going to be returning to the Fulmination test server and doing more ship requests. Today's ship request is going to be the Megathron. Alright, if you like my videos, please go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell if you do want to be notified whenever I do release new content. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the ship. So the Megathron is a Galente ship. It is a tech level 9, and it is a battleship. So the first bonus that it gets is large railgun operation bonus per level. It gets minus 5% large railgun activation time, and plus 5% large railgun tracking speed per level. Second, for battleship command bonus, it gets minus 5% inertia modifier per level. That's going to let this ship actually turn a little bit better. The basic info on this ship is going to be the overall defense is 63,731 with a flight velocity of 121, warp speed of 2, power grid output is 9,779, capacitor is at 10,157, cargo hold capacity of 1,350. So let's look into the details of this ship. When I was going through this ship, I actually explored a couple of different fits and was playing around with all sorts of different things. In this video as well, I also want to go over the Sentry drones and play around with those and kind of see what they do and how they operate and how effective they're going to be with this ship. So let's look at the fit itself. In the high slots, it has 7, and I have fit in here. See all that? Core C-type large snub-nose railguns. So 7 of those. They have an optimal range of 9 and an accuracy fall-off of 13.5 km. Tracking speed of 11.8, and a reload time of 5 seconds that I don't believe ever really comes into play, but the activation time is 4.94. In our mid slots, I have a Predator Stasis Webifier, a Predator Warp Scrambler, and a Haley Target Painter. For my drones, I'm using 2 Mark 9 Wardens. They each have 53.54 DPS. They require 1 megawatt of power. Activation time is 4 seconds. Their optimal range is 75 km with an accuracy fall-off of 56.7 km. Their tracking speed is 0.02. And they have no flight velocity, no orbit speed. Their drone control range is based off of mine, which is 35 km. Okay. So I wanted to do a lot of testing with those. One of the things that I did find out is your drone control range doesn't really matter with sentries. It's kind of a deployable, really. So you can deploy them and actually get far away from them, and they still will shoot, I believe. Don't quote me on that last part there. That still does need a little bit more testing. Oh, I got ahead of myself. So in the bottom slots here, I actually set this ship up to be a pretty tanky ship. If we're going to be up close and personal, as it would be said, then we would absolutely need to have a huge tank. So I have a Corpus C-type large armor wrapper on here first, for obvious reasons. We want to go and make sure that we're able to actually repair some stuff on here. I'm using the Corpus C-type adaptive armor hardener. I have 2 of those. And I have fitted on here a Corellium C-type reactive armor hardener. In this fit, I also have a Corellium C-type magnetic field stabilizer. And I decided to go with the Core C-type large afterburner. I actually did a fit with the micro warp drive as well, and I do like the fit with the micro warp drive, but I was actually having a little bit of issues hitting things, and the reason for that is because the mid slots I had a change in that. So we're going to take a look at the other stats on this ship here in just a second. But as you can see, one of the core things here is the capacitor on this is 13 minutes and 15 seconds. With the micro warp drive on here, it was less than that. And I had a large Nosferatu on here. And with the large Nosferatu, I was actually able to get it cap stable. So that was pretty cool. Even having that on there, it was able to be cap stable and run everything. But I had to remove something to do that. Either the target painter, the Predator Scram or the Predator Stasis Webifier. And by removing one of those, I found it made it very, very difficult to hit even those smaller ships. So it really did increase the time because I would have to play around, especially if they were able to scram me. Because if they scrammed me, it turns off the micro warp drive, and I could not even use that to get the speed. So what I actually had to do was basically try to fly in a straight line and get far enough away to where the actual drones could apply some damage, and try to do some fancy maneuvering to apply some damage here and there with my guns whenever I could. That video will not be included in here. I am just going to be doing the afterburner. I find that it works much, much better. However, I did want to let you guys know that the micro warp drive build can work and can be in there if you want to be that bit faster. Okay, so this ship here for the defense, for shields, it has 22,937 shield hit points, 27,253 armor hit points, and 27,758 structure hit points, for a total of 94,853. The capacitor, as we just talked about, lasts for 13 minutes and 15 seconds. It is sitting at minus 24.5% for the recharge. So if you aren't using the armor wrapper, then it's cap stable. If you are using the armor wrapper, it's not cap stable. Okay, so for the targeting on this computer, the targeting on this ship, we're looking at the radar center strength is 28 points with a scan resolution of 148, signature radius of 354, and it can block a max number of targets of 8. For navigation, it's sitting at 175.45 with a warp preparation time of 8.23, making this ship faster to warp than most of the ships we've looked at in the recent history, and a warp speed of 2 AUs. I don't think, did I go over the total capacitor on here? Yeah, total capacitor capacity is 22,091 gigajoules with a recharge time of 893 seconds. And the power grid maximum is 14,668. Okay, so that goes over this particular short range fit, and this is the fit that we're going to take out at the end of this video and showcase and have a little bit of fun with. However, I do have another fit I would like to show you guys, and that would be the mid to long range fit, depending on how you see it. So if you give me just a second, I'm going to do a small cut here and I'll come back with that fit. Hi guys, I'm sorry, I forgot to actually go over the rigs, so I'm going to go ahead and input that here. The rigs in the bottom, I have the semiconductor memory cell 3s. I have 3 of those. And that is to help this ship get capacitor, as it is a little bit capacitor hungry. Not as bad as some of the ships I've flown, but this one, it still definitely does help quite a bit to make sure that you stay cap stable or don't run out of energy. And the offensive slots, I actually have an anti-thermal pump 3 and an anti-kinetic pump 3. The reason I'm running both of those is because the tank is set up for what I'm going to be fighting, and this ship I was fighting Galente, so I had it set up to do so. That gives the armor resistance on here a total of an EM resistance of 50%, thermal resistance is 61, kinetic is 62, and explosive is 10. Since the Galente ships aren't going to be doing EM or explosive to me, I don't really care about those two. It was just that thermal and the kinetic. You can change those around for whatever you are going to be fighting or whatever you think is best. If you are going to be fighting something like Megathron or Caldari, just know that they use missiles, and those missiles are going to apply their damage evenly. And the Megathron especially, other than missiles, they're going to be focusing on cannons. So that's going to mean that the explosive damage is where you're going to want to focus mainly versus those. So I would definitely recommend having at least one explosive resistance, and then putting your other in either kinetic or thermal, whichever you prefer. Probably explosive kinetic if you're going to be fighting either one of those, I would imagine. Alright, and lastly on here, I do have a Railgun Burst Aerator 3. This is increasing the activation time adjustment. This ship does already get an activation time adjustment just from its raw stats. However, after I looked at it and tried both on there, the activation time still did increase the damage more. So firing faster with the ship definitely made it do more DPS overall. If you're looking for those big chunky hits though, you can put the other one. You'll have slightly less DPS, but you will do more higher damage numbers. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut this here, and we're going to go back into the long range fit. Okay, and here we have the long range fit. So for the long range fit, I did replace the top weapons with Core C-type large rifled railguns. In this fit, they have an optimal range of 60.1 km. They don't get any type of range bonus that the smaller ships do, or the range bonus that the Apocalypse does. So its optimal range is actually going to end up being lower than that. However, it does have an accuracy fall off of 36.92 km, putting it at 50% damage at 96.93. So this can work effectively with those drones like I was talking about before. These Wardens here have a 75 km range. If we warp in at that 75 km range-ish, drop off those drones, and then start moving away, we can fly within our fall off area and still apply damage while those drones are applying damage as well. Now, what I have on here for the mid slots is I'm actually running a large group armor repper, and I have 2 of the Haley target painters to try to blow up the sides of the ships for whenever you're trying to hit them. Since this one is flying more at a medium range compared to the longer range that some of the other ones can get to, I would suggest having a little bit more repping is probably better. You may even want to change out a second target painter for another repper depending on what type of content that you're doing with this. Or if you find that it's not necessary for the repping as much, you can actually take out what we have in the low slots, which we're about to get into. So the low slots, I kept the Corpus C-type large armor repper just to help you heal up any damage you take, sitting at 60, 70, 80 km, in between that 60 and 100 km range. You're still probably going to take hits from the longer range ships, so you want to make sure that you can heal that. However, this one is up for debate as well. And the reason why is if you are okay with your content that you're doing and able to, another Eagle tracking computer would be great to have in here. And that would actually put your range up to 61.85 with an accuracy fall off of 37.29. Now, the reason why I say having another one is great to have in there is they have a activation time of 10 seconds each, which means if you have 4, you can have all of these up almost indefinitely. So by the time you remaneuver things like that, you'll just have a few moments in between shots, and you can actually keep them up and have a much further range if you need to. That being said, you could also add in damage as well. So if you wanted to do higher damage, we can put in another magnetic field stabilizer, and you could just depend on your group rappers to heal you up, which would give you a total of 1,270 DPS by having that. Again, fighting at these ranges, though, I think having the large armor repper is going to be probably where you want to stay at until you're comfortable using the ship and know what you can and cannot get away with. All right, so that brings us to the second. We have 3 of the Eagle tracking computers in here that we just went over, and we are using 1 Corellium C-type magnetic field stabilizer. We did change out the afterburner for a GIST C-type large micro warp drive, and that is going to let us dictate that speed a little bit better. And we'll go out and showcase a little bit of that here. I'm not going to take the long range fit into a fight because you guys have seen plenty of the kiting videos and it's just more of the same when it comes to that. For the rigs, I didn't change up any of the rigs in the bottom right here. So the defensive rigs are all still the same, the engineering rigs rather. So there's semiconductor memory cell 3s, all of those. But you might want to actually change one of these out for maybe some navigation rigs. The capacitor here is 5 minutes and 34 seconds, but that's very misleading. Most of the time you're just going to be sitting back firing the guns, so this capacitor really isn't going to be using a whole heck of a lot. And over here is where the big changes are. So I have a railgun ambit extension giving more accuracy fall off of 20%. And there is the railgun collision accelerator, which damage bonus of 17.5%. And we also have the Railgun Burst Aerator 3, for activation time of 12.5%. Now, the Railgun Ambit Extension, this is completely optional and up to you. And what I mean by that is if you like to be able to reach out and touch people, want to have that further range, that's what you want to have in there. However, you could trade that out for a second railgun burst aerator and get more DPS out of it if you want to stay a bit closer and just apply more damage. It's going to be completely up to your playstyle when it comes to the kiting fit, how you perceive those items there. Let's go ahead and undock this ship real quick, and we will take a look at what it's actually going to look like when those targeting computers are active, so you can get a feel for if you wanted to actually have 4 in there and not. Alright, so let's just go ahead and organize this just a tiny bit here. We'll have 1, 3. Okay. So most of the time, whenever you are doing a kiting fit, you're only going to have one tracking computer active at a time. Unless you absolutely need to blap something that's really far away, you kind of want to cycle those because usually you're out further than what you need to be, or it's at the start of a wave where you need to hit frigates or whatnot. Let's go ahead and activate one of these. Alright, so this is going to put it at an optimal range of 84.85 km with an accuracy fall off of 50. Giving it basically 134.91 km until you hit that 50% marker. So basically, whenever you have 3 of these on, they're going to last for their 10 seconds. Then they start their 60-second cooldown. So like I said, you can't have it up indefinitely. That's not going to happen. But whenever you do have the 4 of these on here, there's just going to be a little bit of downtime left before you have to, recycle. Okay, so with 3, what you're sitting at is roughly 22, maybe a little bit more seconds. If you have another one active, you're looking at about, I would say about 15, 16 seconds remaining that you have to wait instead of the longer period of time. You're basically going to be able to apply that damage further if you wanted to sit out at that 100k plus, or even up to the 150k, and be firing at a safe range. Now again, with this ship, you're going to want to drop off your drones at that 75 km marker, and then go away from them. Let them sit there, let them blap blap blap, and you're going to sit back even further and do your thing. So that's about all for this fit. There's not really much to show. I will show you what the top speed is with the micro warp drive and how fast it can get there. So we activated the micro warp drive. It's still getting up there. We can just take a look at the fittings. And 1075. We're almost done with the first rotation of it, and alright, so it doesn't quite hit its top speed within that first rotation, but within the second rotation it should. Which is going to allow you to really dictate that range and stay out there where you need to stay out for the most part. As long as you're blapping the correct ships, you should be able to do the kiting in this ship no problem. And it will work just fine. So I just kind of wanted to showcase that off there a little bit. I'm not taking this version out, but I did want to show you guys what the 2 different fits that I would use on this ship would look like. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into the combat. I'm going to do a cut right here, and we'll arrive with the close range fit doing combat. Okay, so here we are. We're right outside the area where the anomaly is going to be at that we're going to go to. I am in the close range fit, and we're going to see how this goes. So before we do anything else, we want to check out a couple of different things before we start in. And that's going to be first, we want to see what our full speed is actually going to be with this ship with the afterburner. It looks like 499. And the other thing that we want to take a look at is activating all of our hardeners and see where our defense is sitting at currently. We're at 78 and 79, and that is going to adjust as we start taking damage. Okay, so we can go ahead and keep those on. And what we're going to do is we're going to warp in, but we're going to warp in further out. Even though this is a close range ship, I want to warp out around, yeah, 55, 56, somewhere in that area. And the reason for this is we are using the Sentry drones in this, and I want to drop them off at a pretty good distance away.
Warp drive active.
Alright. So we're heading into the anomaly now. Step 1 is going to be drop off the drones, and then we're going to try to approach and get into our combat range. Now, the theory is the drones are going to be able to start blapping the little ships from this far out. Okay. Let's go ahead and drop those guys off. Maybe we should have warped in a little bit further away. You can stop that, please. We're going to focus fire on this guy. And also approach. Okay. No reason to use those right now. Still got a bit further to go. And they happen to be behind a rock. That's fun. Let's maneuver around this stupid rock. And we can turn that off for the time being. And let's go ahead and start blapping. Alright, so our next thing is going to be to take out this guy. Since he's very close, I want to see how those sentries are going to be able to do. Looks like even having him stopped all the way isn't effective for those sentries there. That's fine. Okay. We're going to turn on the blap cannons. And we're going to hit our afterburner just to get that little bit of speed. Get ourselves into range. And let's activate that and see where our damage is. 1968.49. Not bad. Okay. So we are going to continue to move this way. We're going to turn on our afterburner. There, we finally got some hits in. Alright, let's approach this guy now. We're going to turn on our armor repper. That guy just melted. Next, we'll send an approach on this guy. Okay, we don't need our armor repper anymore for the time being. So as you can see, the ship is dishing out quite a bit of damage. Oh, we don't need to have... He's not going to be warping from us. Just a waste of energy. We can do a little bit of repairing, though. Okay. Let's start moving this way. Build up to our top speed. Let's turn that off. And let's get ready for wave 2. Alright, we're right in the middle of wave 2. So how are we going to handle this? Let's go ahead and light this guy up. Perfect. Alright, so the whole plan is trying to move away and create less transverse velocity for our drones there. So they can hit. At the same time creating space for us. Perfect. Alright, now we're going to turn back around. Excellent. Alright, and we don't need to be running our armor repper currently. We're doing okay. Let's actually take out the... Yeah, we're gonna... the Myrmidon. We're going to be focusing on the Myrmidon right now. And we're gonna sit right next to this Megathron. And we're actually gonna stop. Okay. Run our armor repper a little bit. And let's trade fire with this guy. And we can activate our... Oh, it's not a ballistic control in this thing. It's a gyro stabilizer, I believe. Yep. Magnetic field stabilizer, not the gyro. I'm sorry. Again, that's putting us to almost 2k damage. 1,968.49. And we're able to take out that guy pretty nicely. Okay, so our drones are that way. So let's again turn about face. Okay, and we should be able to take this guy out, even getting outside of our optimal range, and be moving in the direction that we want to go for the next wave of ships. Okay, these guys spawned a little bit farther away from us. Let's get the smaller ships locked up here. This guy's going to be the threat, it looks like. Let's focus on him. Okay, we are starting to apply some damage. I think the damage is going to get better. Yeah. So he is incoming in a straight line. We should be flying in a straight line pretty much away. And the closer he gets, the better for us. Okay. Now I want to head more this way. More of a straight line away from my drones, if I can. Perfect. Alright, and let's just turn around and approach this guy directly now. I want to kind of see what happens the closer we get here. Okay. Let us stop him. Our next ship is going to be this catalyst here. Let's get our drones firing on him. Now, we're still well outside of our range, but that's okay. Obviously, with much better piloting, you can make sure to manage your energy a lot more efficiently than I am, and you would want to do that if you're actually trying to do T8s or T10s or any of that type of stuff with this ship. However, if I was running T8s or T10s, I probably wouldn't have the damage activation on here. I would probably go for a capacitor battery or maybe even a second armor repper, because whenever you're up close like this, making sure that your tank does not break. Let's stop and focus fire this guy actually. Okay. So on the tougher missions, having a better tank whenever you're an up-close brawler is always going to be desired. You're going to take damage. Making sure you can survive that damage is half the fun. Okay. Approach you, we'll activate that. But all in all, this ship is definitely capable of brawling quite well. So I definitely see with some experience in this ship, you could definitely get to doing probably T8s and T10s with this ship pretty effectively as a brawler. It's not nearly as cap stable as something like the Balrog, but with the right skills, and I don't mean skills that you possess in game, I mean with the right player skills, knowing your fights, able to navigate around, doing the right maneuvers, you should be able to take care of everything pretty easily. Alright, let's get right up on him, apply that full DPS. Just keep peppering him. Oh, another thing that we do want to look at here now that we're close to the end of the fight, really. So if we look at our defense, we're actually at 80 and 83 for our thermal and our kinetic. Again, this ship is designed to be fighting Galente currently. Whenever you are using your defense, or whenever you're setting up your defense for your ship, rather, I would definitely recommend keeping in mind what you are going to be fighting. And if you are going to be fighting Kaldari or Minmatar, they both do use missiles, so missiles apply damage evenly everywhere. So in those cases, it might actually be the best job just to fill your damage holes in those cases. With Minmatar, I would actually focus a bit more on the explosive, since their cannons also do explosive. But yeah, definitely try to make sure that all of your damage holes are filled in case you run into ships that are going to be doing insane damage with all of their missiles. Alright, we're just going to boost up our damage here just for this last little bit. Okay. And that's that. That is the close range fit. Now the close range fit did do very well. Also, our Sentry drones sitting out there did do a lot of work also. That was one of the cool things that I did want to see about doing this, is how they were going to perform. Now, these Sentry drones basically sit wherever you put them out. So if we tell them to return, are they actually going to return to us? We're at 45. No. So your sentry drones are not returning. Either that or they are busted again. I'm back in orbit? Nope. Alright. So in the middle of combat, if you do want to move your sentry drones, it does appear that you are going to have to actually go pick them up. So they definitely don't want to move. So wherever you place those is where they're going to be for that combat unless you physically move them yourself. So that's something that's good to know as well. If you are planning on using sentry drones and ships, they do have that 75 km range in this case here, and that is going to be good for having them out, but just know, especially if you're in a close range fit, which I do think those sentry drones are going to be pretty effective in these close range fits. You can drop them off way out there, slow down a target, they're going to be able to apply their damage, and you don't really have to worry too terribly much about them missing all that often, really. So even though they don't provide a ton of damage in a drone boat, or in a ship that is not a drone boat rather, they are going to be applying constant DPS, and just like with the long range fits, at the beginning when things are coming towards you, they'll be able to blap them as well. And so I think that's a really cool contrast to have with the close range fits, and also going to be something that would be okay to have if you're working with a mid-range fit, something that's going to be working at 75 km or less but still wants to keep its distance. You can lay out your drones there and they can be blapping stuff instead of just being hood ornaments. So something like the Oracle or whatnot that I used to fly, they're obviously not going to be able to fit the Sentry drones, but once we get into the Apocalypse, it's going to have 100 km plus, or the Minmatar ships that are going to get to 100k plus, you can actually warp in at 70, drop your drones, and then start moving away and just have them sit there and actually be able to do something instead of flying around you in a circle. Okay, so now we were able to pick up the drones, so I just kind of wanted to showcase that and show you guys that you do need to go pick up your drones. Now the next test that we're actually going to do here is we're going to redeploy these drones, and I want to get away. And what we're going to do is I want to see if they're automatically going to be dumped into my inventory when I warp off, or if they're going to stay there and we're going to lose our drones. This has probably been tested by other people before, but I haven't done it yet, so I kind of want to see. Because if you do leave these guys behind, that would really suck. And the reason why I bring that, not feature, but maybe detriment, is because in EVE Online, that's how it does work. If you have your drones out and you don't scoop them before you leave, then they just sit there for anybody to come scoop up into their drone bays. How far away are these guys now? Are they outside of scooping range? I would imagine 24 km is outside of scooping range. So let's warp off. Let's see what happens. Because they can't return to me.
Warp drive active.
Looks like they're still there. So you don't need to go pick them up after combat. If combat does finish, they will just automatically teleport back into your inventory. I figured that's what they were going to do, but I kind of wanted to double check, because in combat, if you want to move them, you have to go back to the drones. But if you're just warping out, they're going to come with you. Everything's just fine. So you don't have to worry about it, especially if you're in these big slow ships that are using these Sentry drones, flying all the way back out there and picking them up. You can just scoop up your loot, go, and everything's going to be just fine. Alright, so that takes care of the combat portion of this. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Follow me on Twitter at SavatTheMighty, and join us on the Discord. Links will be in the description below. I hope you have a great day.